Hello everyone, just getting started here a minute or so early. Alright, looks like we're live. Welcome to my show. This is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure over the next couple of hours to walk you through some Lightroom and Photoshop tips and techniques and tricks, and today we're going to continue where we left off on Tuesday with photo restoration. If you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. This show is live Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time to noon Eastern Time at twitch.tv/Adobe. I also have my own channel at twitch.tv/Terry L. White. So I'm going to take a quick pause for a second just to make sure the stream's looking good. Also, if you're watching the replay, I will pause from time to time to address questions that were asked live on the chat. My chat's over here, so if you see me looking over here, I'm saying hello to people in the chat. Like hello Dark Phoenix, hello Victoria, hello Star Crunch, hey Nabel, how's it going? And Ultralight Photography, hello. Let me just check another thing real quick here to make sure that I host this on my own channel. All right, we got the hosting going there, and let's go ahead and start the analyzer. And all should be good now. Okay, everything's looking good. Okay. So if you're just joining in, we'll get going here in a minute or so. I know it's you're saying, oh, don't wait, go, go, go. And especially if you're watching the replay, you're like, especially go, 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 because there's no reason to wait. But let me explain a little bit about what we're going to do today. I have some old photos that we kind of started working on Tuesday. One that we spent the bulk of the time on, but I wasn't quite finished. I'm going to show you where we left. I'm going to show you where we started, where we left off, and what's left to do on that particular photo. And then we're also going to take a look at doing a little restoration on the iPad using Photoshop Fix, which is a free application for iOS, for iPhone and iPad. Hey, Crystal Met. Love your handle. And glad you're here. Hello, everyone else that's there in the chat. So we have some folks that are live. Obviously, we've got some folks that'll be watching the replay. We got a good number of people, looks like, live here. Let me go ahead and just check one more thing. Let me do it that way. There we go. Okay. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. And again, just a quick recap for the people that just walked in the room. My name is Terry White. I broadcast on Tuesdays and Fridays here on the Adobe Twitch channel. I'm the Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. And some people get confused. They're like, you work for Adobe? You do this for Adobe? Yes, I work for Adobe. I've worked for Adobe for over 19 years. So today we're going to be taking a look at photo restoration. And if you're watching the replay on Twitch or on my YouTube channel, again, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing. All right, so let me switch over to the different cameras. And let's go here. That's probably the best view where you can see both my monitor, you can see my hands as I'm working on my Wacom Cintiq. So that's another question that comes up often, especially for people that are new. A lot of people, surprises me, but a lot of people still haven't seen what a Cintiq is. So this 27-inch QHD display I'm working on is a Wacom Cintiq. It's a Wacom tablet built into a display. So that means that I not only have a nice monitor connected up to my Mac, but I've also got one that's pressure sensitive and even touch enabled. So I can tap on the screen and touch my way around with my finger, or I can turn touch off and just work with the stylus. So I love the ability to work and do all my retouching and photo restoration on the Cintiq itself. Is it possible for you to work for Adobe also? It's possible for anybody to work for Adobe. Just head over to adobe.com/jobs. And hopefully you can find a job at Adobe that is what you're looking for. So anything's possible. All right, and I'm glad, Rotten Biohazard, you love doing photo restoration as well. Okay, so let me show you guys where we kind of left off before. So I'm going to hit full screen on these. So this was the original photo that we started on, and you can kind of see while the photo or the subject doesn't have a ton of damage, the photo does. So it's got strips of tape on it, here, 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 just all kinds of stains and garbage on it. The photo itself is losing its sharpness and color, and it's not even, well, it might have been probably a black and white photo, but it's losing its detail. And that happens over time as photos fade. And there's some damage that I had to repair in getting the tape off. And where we left off, well, let me go one more step. So this was what we had done in Lightroom. So this was just a matter of correcting the crop, changing it to a black and white, so removing the color, and not really doing a lot of the retouching there, but doing and also increasing the sharpness and the contrast. So I did those steps in Lightroom, and then we headed over to Photoshop and we worked to this point. So this is, again, removing as much of the tape as we could, cleaning up some of these fake window panes behind the subject. Of course, cleaning up all the little spots and things on the subject itself, cleaning up the floor, kind of starting the restoration process here on this fake background, which I'm not in love with anyway. So I wasn't going to spend a ton of time on that. Restoring a lot of this on the right hand side as well, and just getting this photo more in a better condition so that it could be printed. Now, one of the questions that kept coming up on Tuesday was, hey, that little scratch in the bench that you just repaired or you didn't repair, is that a scratch in the photo or a scratch on the bench? And why did you fix it or not fix it? And the point I kept trying to get across to people on when it comes to photo restoration is that photo restoration, just like anything else in photography, is very subjective. In other words, every photographer, every photo restoration person, every photo retoucher will have a difference of opinion on how they do it, what tools they use, what they do, and what they don't do. When it comes to photo restoration for me, what's most important, especially if it's a photo for me, meaning I'm not working on this for anyone else. This is not a client job. This is my dad who passed away recently. So this photo is for my memories to repurpose and reprint this photo and share it to my family on Facebook and things like that. So things like the bench, who cares? Things like that flower in the left-hand corner, which we still got to do some work on, really, who cares? Because whatever this photo backdrop is, this photo lab is, no one in my family has any emotional attachment, and especially me. I have no emotional attachment to that bench. I have no emotional attachment to that fake backdrop. I have no emotional attachment to anything in this scene other than the subject. So as long as I've corrected the subject to look good, to look right, to look the way I want it to look, I really don't care about the historic value of the things in the photo. And what happens is when you start a photo restoration process, you look at the entire photo and you start saying, oh, well, that leaf in the upper left-hand corner that's almost completely ripped out of the photo, I'm going to spend 5 hours putting that leaf back. And at the end of the day, who cares? If it's something meaning for a client and that leaf tells a story and it's important and it's the leaf that fell from the tree when the person was born or whatever, and that leaf's important, by all means, put it back. But when it's not important, are you really going to spend 3, 4, 5 hours fixing something on a photo that no one cares about versus the time you could be spending on the part of the photo that everyone cares about, or moving to another photo? So that's what I mean by think about the photo restoration in terms of what you need or your client needs. Again, it depends on who you're doing it for. and what's important and what's not important. So, for example, I've said this already like 3 or 4 times. We're not finished with this photo. I stopped because I ran out of time, and I didn't work on it anymore after that. But what I wanted to prove as a point is that I took where we are right now and printed it, and there it is. Let me see what you can see. So, at the end of the day, if you came to my home and you saw that photo on the wall, you're not going to say, hey, there's a little spot on that leaf right there. What happened there? No one's going to care. You're just going to look at that picture and say, oh, cool picture of your dad. What year was that? You're going to start asking those kinds of questions. Because the things that people are concerned about, just notice his foot. I need to raise this photo up a little bit. His foot's cut off. But, and I think the foot is actually in the photo. But I had to crop it down to a 5x7. And I'm pretty sure it's there. I just need to raise it up in the frame. This is a mat. But anyway, those are the kinds of things that are important. Looking at the subject, not the crap around the subject, as long as the crap around the subject is not distracting. So in this case, we didn't even finish the restoration, and the print looks decent. And again, this is not the final print, but I just wanted to prove the point that you put that print in the frame, you put it up, people are happy. Or you're happy. So at that point, it's a matter of, okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, hang on. The print's small on the screen. I hear you. Let's fix that. There we go. So we'll go back to there. There we go. So we'll make it bigger so you guys can see it. So that's the print in a glass frame. And of course, I already had this up on the wall. Now I'll replace it with the final version when I'm done. But at the end of the day, that's all we care about is, did we make that photo look a lot better than it looked when it was damaged and faded and torn up and all that? And the answer is yes. So that's your goal, is to make that photo look decent enough to where you would print it, or you would put it up, or you would give it to someone. All right, let's go back. Okay. That better? All right, and Falcon, that's why you will never be invited to my home. Because you would point out that leaf. Okay, let's see here. See if I could if I could see any more questions. Okay, so if you're watching a replay, I'm now looking over at the chat because I talked for a while. Now we got some more questions. All right, does the quality of the scanner matter to the photos that require restoration? You think? I mean, unless it was a cheap $20 monochrome, I don't think it should be. But okay, it's what's going to matter in the scanner. If you're using a scanner, there's a few ways to do it. If you're using a flatbed scanner like I did on that one photo, what's going to matter is not so, I mean, the quality always matters, but not as much as the resolution. Because what's going to happen is, if you're scanning a small photo, like a little 4x6, or in some cases even smaller, then what you're going to want is enough resolution to where not only can you restore it, but you can also enlarge it for a print. Because maybe you now want, instead of that little tiny photo that you scan, you want an 8x10, you want a 16x20, you want something bigger. So the quality, yes, matters, but more importantly, the DPI of the scanner would matter more when it comes to scanning for photo restoration. Now, I know that's kind of like the opposite of what we hear with megapixels on cameras these days. We're at a point where megapixels on cameras don't mean as much as they used to, because we're at a point to where the megapixels are high enough for most people, for most things we're going to do. I remember I've shot with a 12 megapixel camera for several years. That's all the resolution I ever needed for what I was shooting and what I was printing. Then I got a 24 megapixel camera. Now I have a 36 megapixel camera. Don't care. I have them because of the other features of the camera. I didn't really buy them because it was 24 megapixels or 36 megapixels. and Canon's got a 50 megapixel camera. So those things don't matter to me as much. But when it comes to a scanner, if you're going to be scanning small things, small photos, then you want something that does 600 dpi, 1200 dpi, 1000 dpi, whatever it is, so that you have enough pixels to enlarge it. That would be the main thing. This scanner was a cheap $50 scanner. Literally, I wanted something I could get quick. I knew I wasn't going to use it that much after this trip, and I wanted to be portable, fit in my backpack, and take it with me on this road trip. Plug it into my computer and just scan. It was slow. It was only 600 dpi, but it did the job. It gave me this print. It gave me enough resolution to do what I needed to do. If I were going to be scanning hundreds of photos or thousands of photos or be scanning from here on out, then I would have invested in a better scanner. I would have invested in one that does 1200 dpi instead of 600. I would have invested in one that does it faster. Or the other option I would do is set up my DSLR on what I would call like a copy stand, where I may be shooting straight down, and then and of course putting the picture that I'm shooting in direct line of sight with the lens, using a macro lens if I need to, and then shooting using my DSLR as a scanner, because then I am getting in my case, a 36 megapixel raw file that I can do whatever I want to do with. So it just really depends on your needs. If you're going to scan a lot and you need to do it fast, the DSLR method may be the best. If you're only going to do it once in a while, or maybe never again, then you could probably get away with cheap or low res or not as good quality. I don't know that there are any bad quality scanners being sold today, but there are certainly some that are good and some that are better and some that are really good. But of course, the price goes up along with them. What else? Let me make sure I got everything else here. Okay. All right. Looks like I got caught up on the questions. And now let's continue the work. Okay, so since Falcon would point out that leaf, we probably should go fix it. Of course, you don't care, but we're going to fix it anyway. So, again, I left off with, this was the original scan. Let's go back and look for those who just walked in the room. That was what we did in Lightroom to kind of get it ready for the retouch. So we straightened it as best we could. It's not straight on in the first place, so the background's never going to be straight along with the subject. Unless I warp it. But the background is straighter, the subject's straighter. We converted it to black and white to remove some of that fading. We sharpened it. We also increased the contrast. Then I took it over to Photoshop, and that's where we left off on Tuesday. We got that much done. There's still a lot more to do, but that's how much we got so far. Okay, so now let's go in and get out of this. Let's go edit it. And now it's giving me the choice because I already edited it once. Let me cancel out of that for a second. You'll notice that this is a PSD. This is a Photoshop file that came back from Photoshop once I started that, that work. So if I edit it again, it's giving me the choice. Hey, do you want to edit a copy of this one, meaning leaving this one intact, starting with a fresh copy, or do you want to edit the original? In this case, I want to edit the original because it wasn't one that I was finished with. So I just want to continue where I left off. So we're going to go ahead and edit the original. That will take it over to Photoshop. Open it up with all of its layers. I don't think I had too many. Yeah, I only had one. And then you kind of start wherever you want or wherever you left off because you're back to that photo where you left it. All right, so some of the things that just looking at, I know one of the things, by the way, that I never thought I would have a problem with until I looked at the print. I don't like how this is faded at the bottom or turned or whatever you want to, whatever you call it. I don't like this white stripe at the bottom now that I've looked at the print. It didn't bother me before. I didn't care before, but if we're going to keep that backdrop, then I want to fix this and make this look a little bit better. I just want to fill it in kind of with the color that's already there. So that's pretty easy to do with the stamp or clone stamp tool. So we'll just switch over to the clone stamp tool. We'll Option or Alt click where it starts. Right there. We'll come down and we'll just start cloning that over. I just don't want to see that white stripe down there. Now, I'm going to show you another trick that will help you keep it within the lines. Let me undo that. And before we do the clone, one of the things you can do to kind of keep yourself from painting outside the line is restrict your movement, restrict your painting. So if I use my rectangular marquee tool, and I just come down here and say that this is a selection, Photoshop won't let me paint outside that selection. Selections are, I used to say back in my early Photoshop teaching days, you select to effect, meaning whatever's selected, that's what gets affected. So now Photoshop is restricting my movement or my painting or my cloning to what's inside that rectangle. So now I can go all the way to the edge and I don't have to worry about, I need to zoom in and make sure I get it just right because I can't go past that edge. So here we can go back to the clone stamp tool. And again, get my spot just right. Option or Alt click. And then see, I can paint all the way to the edge and I can do it faster because I can't go outside that edge. And it'll be a nice clean line that I don't have to worry about it being jagged or crooked or whatever because I can't go outside that edge. All right, there we go. And so now when I deselect, let me undo. When I deselect, I missed the spot there. I didn't go all the way down to the edge. There we go. Now let's deselect. There. Oh, one more spot. There we go. And deselect. Okay, so you get a perfect edge that way. Hello, Phil, Flo, how's it going? All right, so now we just do the same thing. We just move down. And we use our rectangle tool again, rectangular marquee selection tool. And we come over to this edge. And we just say, you know what? I want that to be a perfect edge all the way across. And now the problem is it's not perfectly straight. So I'm going to teach you guys something that a lot of people don't know about the selection tools. Notice that I started on the bottom edge on the left, but by the time I got over to the right, we can see a little bit of white edge. That's because that backdrop's not perfectly straight. So what I can do is go to my select menu and I can do transform selection. A lot of people don't realize this is an option. We're used to Command T or Control T for transforming pixels, but you can actually transform the selection itself. You can rotate that selection ever so slightly so that it is a perfect edge along with that background. Or you can just decide that the background is now going to be straight. I'm going to clone all the way down. It's up to you. So I'm going to keep it this way. I'm going to rotate it just ever so slightly. And so now when I clone down, it will again give me the edge that was already there. So we'll switch over to our clone stamp tool. Use a little bit bigger brush. Now in this case, for those of you watching, I'm using the QHD remote. So I've got the wheel set to brush size. So you can see my brush getting bigger. Really big. And let's go back down to make it really, oh, hold on. There we go. Smaller, 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 a lot smaller. Okay. So this is wireless now. Now on most Wacom tablets, this is built in. This is on your left side or right side or both. But on this new tablet, this QHD, they made this a wireless remote that's rechargeable. There's a USB port on the bottom of it that recharges. It also magnetically sticks to either side, and you can of course use it even when it's not attached. So I do need a little bit smaller brush for this first edge. And again, we're going to hold down our Option or Alt key and come down and just kind of clean this up a little bit. All right, then we go over to the other side where we can get bigger. And again, I can't paint outside the lines because that rectangle is constricting my cloning. So I missed a spot here. And we'll go all the way to the edge there. Oops. And we missed a spot here. And we'll get all that. Okay. Deselect. And now we have the, undo. I didn't go down to the edge here. There we go. And deselect. And we're good. Okay. Moving along, we'll do the same thing over here. So using our rectangular selection tool, we'll go to this edge. And that looks pretty straight as is. And go back to our stamp tool. Make the brush a little bigger. Option or Alt key tap and clone. And again, clone all the way to the edge so that you don't have a broken edge. All right. And deselect. And I don't really need the rectangle tool for this. Just needs to be fixed in this one spot. And then down here, just getting rid of some of the specks that are below. And again, this is only because that white line at the bottom was kind of distracting. Otherwise, I wouldn't have cared about it. All right, zoom out. Yeah, and see how much cleaner that is? Again, bottom edge now. It really looks like that backdrop was right on the floor, right on point, or it just looks like it goes straight down to the floor. It doesn't look like as much of a backdrop anymore at the bottom edge. So just little things like that that will make the picture look a little bit better down there at the bottom. Okay. And you know what I should do? It's too late now, but I should, here, let's do this. Let's duplicate this layer so that we can see the progress of where we came from. So again, I would, yeah, I don't know, I can't go back and fix that now. But anyway, I'll show from this point forward what we've done today. The edge was obviously one of them. So that looks a lot better. Hey, Jan, how's it going? Okay, the other thing I noticed just in the print, I think I noticed this in the print, it might have been cropped off. Yeah, a little bit. Was that we hadn't repaired this stuff up here yet. So it was the white dots are big enough to where they're noticeable in the print. So in this case, we probably want to take care of them. And I'm just using the spot healing tool, which is automatically picking up the surrounding pixels to fill in the areas where I'm painting. So whether it's removing black dots or removing white spots, the spot healing tool is going to be your fastest way to do this. And I didn't want to ignore the condolences I saw earlier, so whoever said the rest in peace and sorry for your loss, I appreciate it. Thank you. I found this kind of work to kind of ease my mind and take my mind off of it. So this kind of actually helps. This is my therapy. What's up, Ninja? Would we follow the same workflow when restoring scans of damaged negatives? An image is an image. It doesn't really matter the source. You would have a film scanner or slide scanner, and once the image is on screen, you'd be doing the same thing. So really, all you're doing is just trading one method of image acquisition for another. Once the image is on screen, the restoration process starts there with whatever's wrong with the photo. Yep. In my history, yes, you're correct. I could do that. The other way I could do it, hang on, I just thought of another way. What do you think would that work? Ah, never mind. I'll do it at the end. I thought of another way we could do it. You know what? Let me now my curiosity is getting the best of me. You shouldn't have said that. Let me try one more thing. This time I'm going to edit a copy. See would it do it? No, it wouldn't do it. Okay, it's still thinking that because it knows it's already open. Oh, but if I do this, hold on, let's do this. Let's do a virtual copy. Nope, it still knows. Okay. Tried to cheat, but it didn't work. So I'll do it at the end. We still have the virtual copy, so that'll be my way to go back. Can I do that with a virtual copy? I don't know. I've never tried to do it after the photo was opened. Oh, we got that one layer. The only thing that would be different would be the floor. Yeah, and I know I could do it with history too. All right. We'll see what happens with the virtual copy also. I think it's going to still update. I don't think it has a choice. All right, here go the black spots in these leaves that are kind of driving me nuts here. This is all from tape, by the way. Tell your parents and grandparents to stop putting tape on photos. Put it on the back, not on the front. Never, never, never use tape on or anything on the front of a photo. Mostly grandparents. Your parents probably are smarter. Not that your grandparents aren't smart. They just never would think you're going to be doing this one day. So go rescue those photos from those photo albums now while you can. All right. Yeah, and I can still see the strips of tape here, or the edge of the tape, I should say. Oh yeah, it really gets bad here. All right, do a little bit of cheating there. And here, let's see, do I have a better leaf? Yeah, that one's not much better. That one's better. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix that. Fix that. Fix that. All right, so we got a better leaf. way up here. So let's use it. Zoom out a little bit. And let's take the damaged area of this leaf. So all of this is just bad. And take it up using the patch tool to an area that's not so bad. And let it patch it back in for us. So same thing down here. This is kind of the bottom edge. And we don't have a perfect match for the bottom edge, but that bottom edge is probably going to look a lot better. And we can just patch it. Same thing here for this, this bar in the window pane. Let's go ahead and select that bar. And move it up to a better looking bar. And the patch tool will take care of that for us. Same thing here, where we got this bar that's kind of all distorted and messed up. Let's move that over to a bar that looks better. And let that patch it in for us. So we just kind of keep doing the same thing as we work our way down. Exactly. They didn't realize that tape itself too would fade. Who would think about it at the time? If you're deciding to put tape on a photo, you're certainly not thinking about the future. All right, same kind of deal here. Now that one's going to be a little trickier because of the angle, but I'm going to guess maybe that might work. That's better. This is not better. All right, so what I'm going to do here is just use my history. Oh, I can't. I can't. All right, let's do. Hang on. Maybe on my history panel. What's going on here? All right, let's maybe put it there. Yes. Okay, what happened was I went to use the history brush and it told me you couldn't because it was pointing to a history state that was so far back in the process, probably before I duplicated that layer, that it says I can't pull from before that. So I just brought up the history panel and chose a different state to start my history from. And so now I can use the history brush to kind of clean up some of that where I don't want it to blur as it patches that one leaf. So now my history is going to start from wherever I started at that point forward. All right. Let's see, do I have a good one to use here? Maybe not. Oh no. That one might work. Let's zoom out a little bit more. And let's go here. And let's patch up to here. I don't really have a perfect ending for this leaf. That won't work the way I want. That won't work the way I want. Oh, that might. Hang on. Start there. And then, using that history brush again, we can kind of shape that a little bit better. So think of the history brush as undo on a brush. So I just wanted to bring in part of that leaf and then undo the rest. And this is all messed up. Thank you, Scotch tape. So once again, I want to patch this, but your patch doesn't have to be drawn with the patch tool. I'm going to use the rectangle tool to make my selection, then switch to the patch tool to actually do the patch. So that way I get a perfect selection for that spot. Same thing here. Rather than me trying to lasso it, I just use the rectangle tool to do my selection. And then figure out, I guess next to it's probably the best. Oops, sorry. Have to actually be on the patch tool before you move it. So patch tool, now move it and line it up. Something like that. All right. And again, I'm not so much worried about the darkness around here because I can just easily fade that in with the patch tool. Or clone stamp it. I'll worry about fixing the window panes themselves later, just as we did Tuesday. This is mainly just kind of getting rid of some of this tape residue. But this is what I mean by spending, we spent what, 40 minutes already on this stuff that really isn't important in the photo. But if we're going to keep this background, we're just trying to make it look a little bit more presentable than it did. And this down here is a mess. So ask yourself, and I'm doing this for the sake of this stream, but I would have probably replaced this background long ago. Or I would have cropped out part of it. Or I would have, just replaced parts of it with something else, because the background's irrelevant for this photo. But since we're talking about restoration, not compositing, we'll do some restoration. All right. Still got to fix all that, but sometimes I get bored fixing that kind of stuff, or just don't want to do it right now, so I'll go work on other stuff and come back to it. Now this bench is kind of reflecting that stuff up there. So that's another dead giveaway. If you're going to fix something that has a reflection, you got to fix the reflection too. So if I go up there and remove all those spots, then the spots are down here that kind of look strange. So go fix it in both places. Get the spots out of your reflection as well as the subject itself. Not that anyone would notice this little corner in the big picture, but just in case, you have that one person that says, hey, how come there are dots in that reflection and not in the original part of that photo? And that's when you escort them out of your home. That's when they gotta go. That's when they've overextended their welcome. Okay, back to the problems at hand. Now I cropped this to a 5x7 for the print. So some of the stuff on this left side doesn't even show anyway. But we'll take care of it just in case. The stream is probably sponsored by Scotch Tape, leaving a mark on history. Yes, I agree. And again, had the tape been on the back of the photo, no problem. But no, no, no. Let's tape this up. And I can't even, to be honest with you, I don't even know why it had tape on the front to begin with. Unless they were trying to tape it in the album to keep it from moving. But then, again, why would you not just put the tape on the back? But yes, proudly sponsored by Scotch Tape. Yellowing and damaging photos for years. All right. Okay, here we go. Back to this area I've been avoiding because it's just a mess. All right, so let's see. Decisions. What do I want to do here? Well, let's start with this. This is just all messed up. And then you got a leaf here coming up from the bottom. All right, let's just say, do we really care about this? Let's see what happens. If we do content aware, and we go up here with that, does that really matter? If we kind of take some of this out of the photo to begin with, would anyone care? I wouldn't care, but would you care? Is that going to look right? No, it's not going to look right. Let's do it a different way. All right, let's do it this way. Let's just clone stamp it. All right, next thing we need to do, choose a rectangle tool. Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah, I guess we can. Fix that pane a little bit better. Patch tool. Clean that up a little bit. All right, so now we kind of lopped off that unnecessary leaf. And honestly, I could lop off all of that and be okay with it. I don't really need it. But let's repair as much of it as we can. All right, let's come over here and kind of clone some of that. So now I'm going through and doing my best to preserve whatever leaf that we don't care about in this corner as best I can. We'll clone some of the other leaves down here, but I got to make room for them. In other words, I got to get rid of some of this other stuff. All right, I'm starting to feel better about this spot already. I just realized that this is not that important. All right, so we're still keeping our reflection true to form. This, you know what? We can really just lose all of this. Who cares? If you find yourself saying who cares a lot, you're probably on the right track. All right. Who's going to care about this missing? I won't. Will you? If you do, oh well. All right. Good, 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 good. Okay, next. Let's clean this up. This does matter. So otherwise it kind of breaks the continuity of the frames. Patch tool. That's better. Okay, so now we got that in a better shape to continue our work. And let's zoom in. Now the other thing with those panes, like for example, you could always select one of these areas, sample the color that's in that area. Let's use our eyedropper. Sample one of the grays that's in there, and just, oh no, wrong key. Just fill it. You could go through and make each one of those panes perfect, but I don't want to do that because then it's gonna, because then you're down that slippery slope. Well, if I made all the panes look perfect, now I got to make all the leaves look perfect too. And now we're at the point where it'd just be faster to replace the whole background. So you can go in and maybe darken that up, or you could go in maybe and here we'll put this on a new layer, and we can fill that in, and then lower the opacity of that layer. So maybe it's not so perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So we hide that selection. Yeah. So I could do that too. So you can do all kinds of things to kind of make areas where they, like this is all kind of scraggly, and do I really want to spend time cloning that in, or do I want to just use that same method I just did? So we'll start here. We'll make a selection. We'll fill it in with that same color. Oh, make a new layer first. Fill it in with the same color. Lower the opacity a little bit so it's not so perfect. And then deselect and crunch it down. Because zoomed out, those panes really look perfect, but they still look realistic. They still look like they're a part of that old photo. So if you want to go line by line and making those lines perfectly filled in and perfectly straight, you can. All right. All right, let's get back to this leaf. Okay, so this leaf, which we're cropping off, we're saying that it stops here. It doesn't go any further. Or we can make it go further just by duplicating one down. Okay, let's do it this way. All right. And now we'll take one of these. We'll go across. All the way to the end. And once again, we'll pick a color. Make a layer. Fill it in with that color. And then lower the opacity a bit to kind of blend it in with what was there. And so now I can also, while I've got that selected, go back to this layer, use my clone stamp tool, and kind of, let's do this. I am using the clone stamp, right? We're on that right layer, yep. Okay. Why am I, oh, because I'm, sorry. Select, inverse selection. Inverse, there we go. Select everything outside of that rectangle. There we go. So now I can clean up right to that edge. Same thing over here, right to that edge. All right, deselect. And go back to this one. And I would say, oh, too much, too much. Maybe something like that. Then we can do the same thing over here. Where this is not remotely straight. Let's do it this way. And we're going to transform that selection. There we go. And we'll grab a color. We're going to use the same color actually. Now we'll grab a lighter color. Eyedropper. Something a little darker. Something like that. New layer. Fill it in. Lower the opacity. Inverse the selection. And then we can clone up to that without going inside. Oh, wrong layer, sorry. Why am I not doing this? Hang on, select. I need to go out, see what's selected. Ah, that's why. Select inverse. I thought I did that. There we go. So now I'm selecting everything but that rectangle. And on the right layer, and there we go. So we can paint up to it to kind of blend it in. Now where you got these sharp edges where the rectangle stopped, you just blend them in with the patch tool. If you're not going to do every single pane. That's what I meant by a slippery slope, because once you do one, once you do a couple, you're going to start wanting to do them all so they all look consistent. And now you're spending more time on the area of the photo that no one cares about but you. And that's okay, as long as you got the time and you care. Okay. Better. The only one that's looking kind of weird is this one when I zoom out. What's going on here? Yeah, I can see why. That kind of looks like a bad patch job. I don't know if I patched that wrong or just, I don't know. Let's go ahead and fix this one. And we'll start it over here. Just moving it up and down with my arrow key to kind of get it lined up where I want it. And same kind of thing where we'll make a new layer. We'll tell it that we want to color that in kind of with a blend in between. Something like that. And then we'll go back to the other layer. We'll inverse the selection so we can clone up to it. And now we can fix this, which is kind of making it look like it has a hump in it. All right, let's go. Clone stamp. There we go. And that should take care of the hump. Let's go back to that layer, lower the opacity, kind of blend it in with the rest. Then we'll fix the sharp edges. And of course, when you fix that hump, it only makes you see that hump now. Then it just continues. All right, I think this is the last one. Everything else looks fairly consistent. So let's go look and see what's going on with this one. All right, same kind of thing where this is kind of like down too far. This is not filled in. So let's do it again. May want to transform that a little bit more. Maybe rotate it slightly. And move it up. All right, that looks about right. And once again, we'll grab a similar color and fill it in. New layer, fill it in, lower the opacity, about there, and then we'll do the other layer, inverse the selection, which means select everything but that rectangle, and then we can kind of fix up that stuff that's leading up to it. Basically removing all the stuff that's making it stand out, because it should look just as bad as all the rest. Alright, and over here we got some issues. Now, when you're working with a tablet, notice my brush is bigger than the paint area I'm actually painting because I'm not applying as much pressure. So that's the advantage of working with a tablet, is that whether it's a Cintiq or regular tablet, is that it's pressure sensitive. So you can have better strokes just by not pressing down as hard. And also you can have smaller strokes, so you can get into tighter areas without having to constantly change your brush size. So you'll rarely see you won't see me change my brush size that often, because I don't have to. I'm just not pressing down as hard when I need to get into a smaller spot. All right, I think that's good. Okay. Let's go ahead and blend in this hard edge. I don't know what's going on here. I think this was a pane I didn't completely fix Tuesday. I keep wanting to say yesterday. Yeah, I kind of see what's going on here. So these are some panes that I didn't fix as neatly as I should have on Tuesday. Let me look at your questions, by the way. That is art in general, you're correct. So, as someone already answered, Viper, we're doing photo restoration. And who asked this? Jan is also asking, how do you fill in color when you choose it? I'll show you an example of that in just a second. In other words, basically, how do you colorize a photo? Didn't do what I thought it would, so let's do this instead. So again, all I'm doing is using the rectangle to constrain where I can clone, so I can clean that edge up neatly. Okay, so since the question was asked, someone's kind of asked the question about colorizing a photo, or basically how do you apply color to a black and white like this. This is not a photo I planned on colorizing, but if I were to colorize it, what I would do is I would divide my photo up into the layers that I'm going to colorize. For example, let's say I wanted to start on his pants. So I would make a new layer, and of course, so I can keep track of it, I would call this the pants layer. Pants layer. And then at that point, you pick your color or whatever, obviously I don't know what color his pants were back then, but I'd pick whatever color I want them to be now. And let's see, let's go into like kind of a dark blue. I know he likes blue, although they probably weren't blue, but whatever color I want to use. And then what you want to do is you want to go to your brush tool, and on your paintbrush, you want to set your mode to color. There's actually a color mode for your paintbrush. So now when you're painting, set that to color. I did. Although that's not, oh, I know why. Sorry about that. Hang on. Because I'm actually painting on the pants layer before I made the, hang on, that's my mistake. What I would do is select the pants and duplicate them onto their own layer. So in this case, I might do something like this. Let's do quick select, get all of this area selected, and tell it what I don't want by holding down the Option or Alt key. Okay, so now we got the pants pretty much selected. Am I missing anything? I think that's it. Okay, so duplicate that onto its own layer. Now there is a pants layer with actual pants on it. And the other thing I would do is I would lock my lock the opacity, or I'm sorry, the transparency, so that there's a lock icon here. And when you lock any of these items, you're saying don't do something outside of this area. So I'm locking the transparency, meaning don't paint outside or don't paint on the transparent areas of that layer. So now I'm free to paint with my paintbrush. With the color mode, I can begin painting his pants that blue. And it won't paint outside of that area because I've locked the transparency. So the color mode, and I know his hand's down there. He's holding his pants leg up there. But I just have to be careful not to paint his hand blue. Or I could have deselected it, so it wouldn't have even been an issue. But this is one way that you can always go in, and if you make a different layer for each element of your photo, then you can always come back also and change the color. So that would be one way to apply color to a photo. And I could even just select the color and say fill, and lock the transparency, and it will fill the entire layer with that color in color mode. And so what color does is it only applies the color to the midtones, protecting the shadows and highlights. So the highlights are still now light blue, and the shadows are either black or dark, dark, dark blue. And that way you get your color. Now, of course, you can continue modifying that layer. You can control the exposure of it. You can darken it, lighten it, whatever you want, because now that's separate. And of course, the thing is, and this is why I kind of even didn't want to show this, now I just want to keep coloring it. I want to keep applying color to the other areas, but I'm not. I'm going to stop myself here because it's like a puzzle. You want to, it's or coloring as a kid. You kind of want to finish coloring the whole thing now. So don't start down that path unless you're ready to continue. So I'm just going to turn off that pants layer. We're going to go back to what we were doing, but that's how you can easily add color to a photo. So just remember, put your paintbrush or your fill in color mode. It's easier if the stuff that you want to colorize is on its own layer, because that way you don't have to worry about coloring other things that you don't want. And so down here in the where his hand is, I would either have deselected that so it's not part of the pan selection, or now I'd have to paint around it. So it'd be easier if I just didn't make it part of the selection. And that's colorizing. Now, where that doesn't work so well, so for example, let's say we go back to the background and we, let's make another selection. Let's make another quick select. Let's start selecting the bench. And of course I don't want his shoe, so we take that out of the equation. I do want that part. I don't want this part. I'm taking this all out of the equation, or out of the selection. Take this all out. Maybe I don't want that part down there, but I do want this part. All right. Again, we're just trying to get as much of the bench selected as possible without the background, without him, without the flowers, without the rest of this stuff. And of course, we need the part where he's sitting on. We got that up there, but we don't want those leaves. So it'll take you a few seconds to make sure you get it all selected and just walk your way around it, because with quick select, you're always going to miss something unless you look. Notice it's called quick selection, not perfect selection. All right, so I'm walking my way around, got the bench, got the legs, got the bench, don't have the shoe. Yeah, I don't have any of that area. All right, so now we'll make a bench layer. And we'll just go ahead and rename that layer. All right, so now we have a bench layer. And what I can do now is pick a color for the bench. So I probably want some kind of wood tone, something dark brown. Something in that family maybe. Maybe something like that. And now because that's on its own layer, I can always just, I don't have to brush it. I can just go up to Edit, Fill, and use the foreground color, but instead of 100% normal, switch it to color. So it's the same thing as painting with a brush. And, oops, sorry. Tell it to protect the transparency. So one more time, Edit, Fill. I didn't tell it to protect the transparency. There we go. Preserve transparency. There we go. Foreground color, fill. And now we just have the bench being that color. So I can pick a different color and fill the bench. I can keep working, keep going. Now where that color mode does not work well is on something that's 100% white or 100% black. Color just doesn't work because there's really no midtones in white and black for it to use. But that's one of the ways you can colorize quickly. All right. You're welcome, Renee, if you're talking to me. All right. Okay. So, see, now I just want to keep coloring. We're not ready to color, though. Let's go back to work. Go back to the boring stuff. Okay, here we go. And this is the last window pane. I swear, this is the last one. But as I was zoomed out, it was driving me crazy. All the little missing spots of this one. Hang on. Zoom in a little bit more. And once again, we will make a new layer. We will eyedropper, select a color, maybe a little bit darker color. There we go. Option delete to put that in, lower the opacity of it. There we go. Kind of blend it in. And actually, I think I'm pretty cool with that one the way it is. Yeah. All right, so I don't need that extra window pane layer. I can get rid of it. All right, looking better. Now, in my print, the one that I did earlier, the print of this from where we left off on Tuesday, the only other thing I noticed that was kind of bothering me about, I fixed the bottom, which that was bothering me. I could probably do some more work on the shadow. The only other thing was the window panes that I hadn't gotten to yet, kind of removing some of this, I don't know, grayness of them. Because like we cleaned up some of these, made them whiter. So some of these were still noticeable in the print because I hadn't got to them yet. So in this case, for example, we were using, I think, the rectangle tool, and we're just kind of going to the edge. And I was just patching them to another area of the photo. Now, another way to do this is to simply use an adjustment or levels or anything like that to kind of just, let's see what this does. Just lighten that area up a little bit. So you don't always have to patch. You can just lighten it so it kind of blends in with the surrounding ones. Let me see how bad my selection. Okay, that's not bad. Deselect. All right, so I can do that same kind of thing here. Now, of course, he's leaning into this window pane, so I got to be careful because I don't want to lighten up his jacket. So when I get to this point, all I got to do is kind of just work my way around him. You can do that a couple different ways. You can use quick select. You can use lasso. You can use whatever you want. Let's try quick select. So quick select, obviously, if I click, will select, but if you hold down your Option or Alt key, it will deselect. So let's see if it's smart enough to deselect the jacket as I work my way around that edge. And it looks like it's doing a good job. Okay, so now I can do the same thing. Levels adjustment, move that middle slider over, and kind of just lighten up that pane a little bit more. So we're not necessarily taking all the junk out of it. We're just making it consistent. Now, I'm doing these one at a time. Don't do them one at a time. You don't have to. Let's deselect. You can select multiple things at the same time. So for example, we can go here and we can say that we want to select this one. All right. And maybe we want to move that over a little bit. Hang on, over. There we go. And we want this one, so I'm going to hold down my Shift key. Hang on, undo. Shift key and pick a better starting spot right there. And I move this one over some. Ooh, no. Sorry, can't move both. You can't move one. You got to move them both. Let's try it again. Let's start down here. It'll be easier. All right, that's better. All right, that's 2. And we want to get this one. That's 3. And while we're at it, we want this one. That's 4. And while we're at it, we want this one too. That's 5. All right, so now obviously I don't want to lighten the leaves and his jacket and other things that are in there. So I need to do some subtracting. So we'll go to the quick select tool, unless it fails us. If it fails us, we'll use something else. Hold down your Option or Alt key, and then you can select the pieces out of that you don't want. I don't want this leaf. I don't want that leaf or jacket or any of that. I don't want the pants. I do want this, so I let go of the Option key long enough to get that. I don't want any of this, but I do want that corner. So put that corner back in. I don't want any of this. So I'm just toggling between holding down the Option or Alt key and not holding down the Option or Alt key to add it back in. Oh, undo. Now that one is being a little picky, so that's okay. We'll do it a different way. So now on this one is just not detecting that enough as a shape. Hang on for a second. To subtract that properly. So no problem. You can use your lasso. You can use any other selection tool as a method of adding or subtracting. So I'll switch to the lasso. Hold down my Option or Alt key and just do a quick lasso around that and tell it to select that, subtract that part of the photo out. Okay, once I have all my selections made, and of course I can go tweak them and say, add that back in, hold down the shift key, add that little piece in, shift key, add that little piece in. Everything else looks decent. Add this little piece back in. Oops, option key, take it back out. There we go. Shift key, add that little edge in. You could zoom in, of course, and do a better job. Shift key, add this little corner in. So just lassoing the places that I want or don't want. Take this out. There we go. And now same thing, levels. And we can lighten up all of those at the same time. To maybe right about there. So that way I'm not having to go in one by one, make a selection, do the levels. And by the way, that also means the levels will be consistent. All right. Better. Yes, Cintiqs are awesome. I've used them for years. I could not see not having one these days. So save. Now, again, same kind of issue here, where I know there should be a little shadow or darkness behind him because it is behind his head and behind his hat. But again, it was kind of bugging me that it was a little bit more noticeable than I wanted. So let's go ahead and just do a quick selection around this. Yes, I did freestyle that selection. Hold down the shift key. Freestyle that selection. And once again, we'll bring up our levels and just lighten that up just a little bit. Okay, when I say a little bit, I mean a lot. All right, there we go. Oh, those were bad selections though. Hang on. All right, so we'll fix them with the rectangle tool. Now I can corner them off, holding down my shift key, and just using the rectangle to make a corner there. There we go. Or just make it flatter or straighter. All right, let's try that again. Still not happy with that. Okay, so we'll just replace it. Because I like everything else I did about it, I just don't like this window pane after it was finished. Let's make a quick selection of that. And let's patch it. Let go too soon. Like that. Oh God, if I had just made a better selection, I wouldn't have to do this. When will I learn? When will I learn? Something no one would see, but I know it's there, so it's going to bother me. And if you've been paying attention since Tuesday, you'll know that you watched me work on this photo most of Tuesday and most of today. And where did I spend most of the time? On the background. The subject wasn't that bad. The subject didn't need that much work, but the background was completely trashed. So again, how much time is it worth spending on the part of the photo that's not the most important? You have to ask yourself that. I did it to go through the exercise so you could kind of see how the tools work. But honestly, that was a lot of work for the part of the photo that's not the most important. Now, speaking of this, the other thing that bothered me was this just weird edge down here at the bottom. So I fixed the edge of the background earlier when we first started, but let's fix this too. So same thing. We can go ahead and just make that that white go all the way down to the bottom. We'll just clone it and just clean that up, make that look a lot better. And get that part next to his shoe. And same thing over here. Just clean that edge up. Now, looking at it, the shadow's need some work. Okay, and let's get some of this. And part of the problem is there's damage in the shadow itself. Residue from tape, probably. Okay. All right, let's clean up some of this leftover stuff. Use the oh, hang on, I don't want to do content aware. Stop, stop, stop. Normal. And now we're going to clean up some of the shadow. This shadow's not as bad. All this dirt and stuff on the floor. We're just kind of patching it out. Now I could just paint it white, but when you paint it white, it might look a little unrealistic, especially if depending on the light source, where it's supposed to kind of, the light's supposed to drop off. So it's supposed to get a little darker towards the bottom of the floor, or this bottom of the image, as opposed to the top of the image. So just be careful. If you're going to paint it white, you need to be consistent to where maybe use a gradient instead of just solid white. And then you want to use the white that's actually on the floor, not white. All right, I think we cleaned that up enough. More than I ever thought I would. Still don't like this. Yeah. That's why we zoom out, because then you can still see the way it's really going to look. I don't like this edge, so let's see what we can do about it. Now it also may be just time to do this. Here, let's try this. Let's go to our lasso tool. Let's pick our polygon lasso. Let's start here. To here. To here. Back up to maybe here. And then over to where we started. All right, that gives us a new selection. Let's go ahead and make a new layer from that. Let's grab that color that's already in that shadow. And let's just fill it in with that color. All right, obviously that looks fake, but we're going to lower the opacity a bit. Kind of make that look a little bit more real. And we're going to select inverse. Go back to that layer below. Go back to our clone stamp tool. And clean up that edge. And select inverse again. And clone the shadow. Right up to the edge. So now we end up with a sharper shadow. And I can keep that shadow layer if I thought I needed it. But let me zoom out and take a look first. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay, don't need it. All right, we got our shadow done. We got most of our background cleaned up to the point to where it's acceptable. I see one more window pane though that kind of needs some lightening, some love here. Got 20 minutes left in the stream. All right, that's better. Same kind of thing going on here. The edge was just a little too hard on that one, so I so I feathered it. That's better. All right. I think we're good for now. There's always more I could do. I could go up here and start cleaning this stuff up here. I can clean up that little spot a little bit better. I can come over here and start cleaning up. But again, at the end of the day, is any of that important, especially if it's going to be cropped for 5x7 anyway? So at this point, I'm going to say that we are done with this photo for now. We can always come back and do more. I can always colorize it like we started doing earlier. I can always start doing things to it to make it even different or better or whatever. But for the intent, which was to take the original photo, which was totally trashed, and make it look better, make it look like something I'd print and put on the wall, we're there. Now, to show you where we came from, this is what we did today from Tuesday. So that was kind of how we dressed it up a little bit more, and you can kind of see some of the areas that we worked on. Was mostly the background, but also if you look down here at the feet, we kind of cleaned up that area down there, kind of straightened up that background a little bit more. And this is where we were on Tuesday. So we started there when we first started on Tuesday. We did that on Tuesday. We did that on Friday. And again, could I do more? Absolutely. Do I need to do more? Probably not. I'm probably okay with this, especially when I printed this and it was decent. Now it's even better. Now that's, I'll print it again and put that one in the frame instead, and that's a better one. But let's go finish it off. Let's save it, put it back in Lightroom, and crop it in Lightroom non-destructively to our 5x7. All right. Thanks, Renee. Thanks, Victoria. Yeah, the music in the background of the streams is just more trouble for me than it's worth. So I tend not to do the music thing. But I don't have anything against it. I just don't do it for me. All right, we're saving. And thanks, Star Crunch. Thanks, Jan. We're just waiting for it to save with all those extra layers. It is it's a big file, 233 megs. All right, so we saved it. Let's close it now. Oops. Oh no, I closed my chat instead. Hold on. I had the wrong window open. Hold on. Let's see. Let's open my chat window back up. Okay, chat window's back. And now go to Photoshop and close. All right, we head back to Lightroom. And in Lightroom, again, we've got the edited photo next to the, and by the way, I wanted to see what would happen here. Okay, did that virtual copy take or no? No, it didn't. Yeah, it made it the same. That's what I thought it would do. Okay, so we don't need that virtual copy anymore. Okay, so again, for those of you just getting here or didn't watch it from the beginning, that's where we started from on Tuesday. Like that was the original scan, complete with all the tape and just stains and fading and low contrast and just weird color and the whole 9 yards. That's what we did in Lightroom to kind of straighten it up, increase the contrast, increase the sharpness, convert it to a true black and white, and this is where we are today. So we went from that to this. And you can just see the amount of work. And again, it wasn't like it was a totally trashed, you know, you got to replace parts of the person kind of retouch or restore, but it was certainly better than this. And that's the point, is that I wouldn't want to print this out and put it on the wall at all. I wouldn't. I know me, I wouldn't do it. But this one I would print out today and put it on the wall, absolutely. So that's a little bit of photo restoration. Now let's finish it off. So let's go to the develop module here in Lightroom. And yep, we're in the develop module. So what I want to do is I want to tap on crop, which will give me a non-destructive crop. So I'm just cropping it for the sake of printing, but I won't lose any of the photo. I can go here from original and I want to make a 5x7. So when I tap 5x7, see, that's just it. There was a lot of that photo that at the top that we're wasting time restoring because the 5x7 won't show it anyway. And I want to move it up so we get the bottom of the photo. So keep that in mind for your cropping. So, I mean, for your restoration. You might even want to think about putting it in the size you're going to print it in before you waste time restoring a lot of things that won't even be seen because you're going to print it at a crop size. So that's the 5x7. Now again, there's nothing stopping me from cropping in a little bit more and saying that's the photo now. And the person that asked the question earlier, but I kind of like the flowers on the left-hand side. We'll kind of keep them. The person that asked the question earlier about scanners and good scanner versus bad scanner or whatever. This is what I meant by having enough resolution, because maybe I want an 8x10 of that. Maybe I want a 16x20 of it. Maybe I want a 20x30. So having enough scan resolution will help you going forward, making bigger prints, making it the size you want it to be. So keep that in mind when you're actually digitizing your old photos. And if you have the opportunity to shoot it with your DSLR and have it look good, meaning you're not going to have reflections and light shining on it and all that. If you can shoot a good copy of it with your DSLR, that's even better, because now you're going to have the highest possible quality and a raw file to begin with. So it's really just up to you on where you want to start. Okay, so that becomes the crop. I lock it in, and now that would be the photo I would have printed, because that's a 5x7. I can export that out right here from Lightroom. I can share it on social media. I can put it on Facebook for the family to see, and it's good to go. It's a done deal. Now, one of the interesting things I'll also point out, you may have trouble taking this somewhere to have it printed, because I didn't shoot this. I wasn't born yet. I didn't shoot this photo. And this was obviously a professional photo of the day when it was shot. And what will happen is you take this into a lab and they're going to say, well, do you have a print release from the original photographer? So when I sent this over, I just had the earlier one photographed at or printed at Walgreens. Cost me a couple bucks. So when I went to pick it up, she said, how old is this photo? I don't know, 30 years, 40 years. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it, but it's, at least 30, 40 years old. Older than that, actually. It's got to be older than that. It's older than I am. And she said, yeah, because, you know, this with professional prints, we kind of need a print release from the photographer that you're able to reprint this. And I kind of like deer in the headlights for a second. Oh, God, I hadn't thought of it from the standpoint of restoring this old professional photo. And so she let me go after I told her, you know, I said, oh, yeah, it's 50, 60 years old. The photographer's dead, you know, that kind of thing. Which I don't know. But when I explained just how old it was and that it was my dad and, you know, whatever, then she was okay, you can go. But don't always assume that you're taking a scan of a photo of really someone else's copyright. Technically, this is whoever shot this photo's copyrighted work. And while it is my photo to do what I want to do with, I'm not legally able to reprint it at a print, because the print provider doesn't want to be on the hook for violating copyright. Just something to think about. And I hadn't thought about it from the standpoint. I know about it today because when I photograph models and they want to go have them printed, which I'm okay with, the lab will call me or email me for a print release and I send them one if I'm okay with it. But with an old photo like this, you aren't going to get a print release because I dare you find that photographer. That photographer may not even be in business anymore. That photographer may not be alive anymore. So she might have been asking the age of the photo just because of the standpoint, maybe after a certain number of years, it's public domain or whatever. All right. Well, thank you, Jan. I'm glad you're very pleased with the result. Okay. Let's, we only got 6 minutes left, so I don't have time to do the other thing I was going to do. We'll save it for Tuesday. But we're done with this photo for now. I want to show you, we'll have to, oh, by the way, moderators, who's up next so that I can give them a shout out? Yeah, it is. Yeah, your own. They're your family photos, but remember, at the back when this photo was taken, they paid that photographer for that photo, so that photographer owns that copyright. That photographer sold you X number of prints. They didn't say you can go print 500 more, so you got to get permission for that. It's Beetlejuice. My good friend Beetlejuice is up next, probably doing something with audio, video, or both. Okay. So that becomes our finished shot, and once again, we went from this to this. And I will get that print done. Any last questions before we go? Because like I said, I've got 5 minutes and not enough time to do something else. Oh, I do have something to show. I just remembered. So in my last 5 minutes, 2 new Lightroom features that came out in the last couple weeks. So let me go to my my panel here. Let's get rid of this one. So as you know, you can make panorama images from your digital files directly in Lightroom and of course in Photoshop. So let's select these ones that I took of a castle in Switzerland, where I just went click, 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 click to build the panorama. So I'm going to right click on this now and I'm going to say Photo Merge to Panorama. And that's not new. That's been in Lightroom CC for a while now. But what is new, we'll let this, this show us Muse. Well, not in 5 minutes. What I can, and by the way, I did Muse. I did a whole 2 hours on it. Go watch my replay at terrywhite.tv. What I can do is show you just a new feature here in Panorama. So that's not new, that's been there. But what is new is this new boundary warp feature. So with boundary warp, what you get is the ability to say, whenever you shoot a panorama, you're probably going to end up with some empty space, some dead space. And what we've had to do in the past is say, oh, well, I shot this handheld. It wasn't perfectly straight. It's going to leave me white space. Let me go ahead and crop it. And that's okay. That becomes your panorama. But now you have this new boundary warp feature in Lightroom CC and Camera Raw in Photoshop CC. So I can just simply slide the slider and it will warp into that excess space. So I don't have to crop it. I don't lose it. I get to keep my photo. Now I'm going to let that cook and let that build that panorama. And while it's building that panorama in the background, I'm going to show you one more preference here. If we go to preferences for Lightroom, in your Lightroom mobile preferences, there is a new preference called Specify Location for Lightroom Mobile Images. And what this allows you to do now is you can pick a folder on whatever drive you want for your incoming images into Lightroom Mobile to be stored. Because right now it's storing them in a weird cryptic place in the pictures folder on your main drive. So if you take a picture with your smartphone or your tablet and you sync it to Lightroom Mobile, now this is telling it where that photo is going to be stored when it comes down to your desktop. And of course it will come down to your desktop in whatever resolution your smartphone or smart device can handle. So that's two new things. Now that we got 2 minutes left, I can take that finished panorama, and by the way, this is what it looks like. So that's with the warping, keeping that extra space or filling in that extra space at the top without having to crop. And now we'll go ahead and take that into the develop module where I can do things like use a graduated filter set to dehaze, and I can go ahead and pull that down, and I can get my sky looking a little bit better here by adding a little more dehaze to it, adding a little bit more color temperature to, too blue. Add a little bit more saturation to it, and just pull that down a little bit more. There we go, right about there. And of course, we can continue making that panorama look better with things like clarity, vibrance, overall, and all of that is now non-destructive, of course. It always has been. So going from individual shots into a full-blown panorama with the photo merge and the warp. All right, guys. That brings us to the end of the stream with less than a minute left. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today and for the Terry White Live, the Lightroom and Photoshop CC show. Next up is Beetlejuice in 3, 2, 1. Bye.